Welcome to the F1 Debate Show. One giant step for Formula One. We talk about the 2018 safety innovation.
Has Carlos Sainz driven his last race for Torro Rosso?
Hello everybody, how are you doing? And yeah, in this episode we are going to be talking about the Halo cockpit actually being into Formula 1 in 2018. So they were sworn in on Wednesday, just a few days ago, by the FIA Tribunal in Paris, in the headquarters, to say that the Halo cockpit, the flip-flop design if you like, which has basically been in the news for about a year and a half now, since the early part of, since winter testing of last season, and now that's going to be sworn into Formula 1. So in 2018, all the Formula 1 cars are going to have this little three-prong hula hoop flip-flop effect, whatever you want to call it, on their cars. And obviously the point is to promote safety, is to make everything safer. For example, things going into the cockpit and what have you. I mean, we've talked about, you know, what can happen, basically the pros and the cons, and mainly the cons, haven't we, for, you know, a number of episodes. I think that, you know, the two biggest F1 Debate Show topics are McLaren and the like Halo cockpit and the, you know, the protection that the Formula 1 cars can have. I mean, it's very strange, and we thought we'd be talking about this of like a what if, and it was always a what if for a good number of episodes now, but it's actually now happening, and it's going to be next year, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, we are halfway. I mean, by the way, can I just say something? We are actually now halfway through the season. Obviously, Silverstone round 10 marked, the halfway point in the season. Obviously, another 10 rounds and it's ended. That's crazy. That really is very strange. So I wanted to put that out there. Yes, so we've got one half of the season left. And more importantly, guys, unless this idea, like the qualifying system, is scrapped, because it's ridiculous, we have got half of the season left, 10 rounds of like normal open cockpit driving before it becomes, you know, closed, halo-y rubbish. So we're going to be talking about that, but now it's actually happening, and that's the big difference. That's a big difference. It's now actually happening. Just a few things on the kind of the build up to it, the build up to the decision. Okay, so obviously Sebastian Vettel in FP1 at Silverstone at the British Grand Prix tested the full windshield wiper cockpit shield. Okay, not North shields, not South shields, but the shield, the cockpit shield, the protection shield. He tested that in FP1, like many tests have been going on before. I remember, you know, many drivers tested it in other FP1 sessions. I remember Daniel Ricciardo tested the windshield wiper protection in FP1 in Russia last year. There's been many tests, obviously throughout last season and through this season as well. And the response from him was, what did I feel about this protection? Which, to be honest, we were saying it was fantastic. It wasn't fantastic. It was better than the Halo, obviously. It went around the cockpit. It went, you know, about this high. It was nice. It was clear. It was just made of, you know, something that the driver could fully see out of. There'd be no distractions. There'd be nothing to, you know, stop them seeing. No obstructions, and it's quite easy to get out of. Obviously, not easy. Not as, you know, it's still hard. Obviously, they're not going to do it in 5 seconds, which obviously is one of the FIA tests for this kind of cockpit. But it was easier to get out of, obviously, than the hula hoop. And the response that Sebastian Vettel gave is that it said he made him feel dizzy. Now, obviously, a Formula 1 driver feeling dizzy is not what you need, because he'll go round the left-hand corner and go right. Or he'll, you know, I don't know, you know when you're dizzy. Or if you want to know what dizzy feels like, stand from this computer and spin around a few times, sit back down, and, you know, make sure that you give this video a like. Go for the dislike button, but then you'll hit like because you're dizzy. But yes, so obviously, no, don't go for the dislike. Go for the like. Yes, go for the like. And yeah, so obviously he said it made him feel dizzy. So basically, the FIA from that thought that, well, you know, the 4-time world champion who is, you know, got a bit of a dizzy mentality sometimes when it comes towards, you know, brake testing. You know, he obviously must be feeling right. If he feels dizzy, he feels dizzy, and obviously all the other drivers are going to feel like that. So what we're going to do is that we're going to kind of scrap the what's the word for it again? I keep calling it the windshield wiper, but it's like that kind of protection. We're going to scrap that altogether, and we're going to go for the Halo cockpit, the three-pronged effect, the hula hoop, the Halo, the flip-flop, the, you know, lightning McQueen, the car protector, whatever you want to call it. And they decided to go for that, and then it is now officially been sworn in. Now, there really isn't one kind of single person that this obviously has been sworn in by. It's been decided by Chase Carey, by Ross Brawn, and all the teams have had at least one representative there to make sure that this is the right decision. So it was sworn in on Wednesday, and it will be in place for the 2018 season. This is to The FIA and the FOM have been working on this, have been working on safety for a very long time, but obviously since some heavy crashes we've seen, obviously probably starting out from 2012 Roman Grosjean, obviously all the way through Formula 1, obviously from little minor crashes to big crashes to safer crashes where obviously things haven't really seen, drivers have escaped, obviously safe, like Fernando Alonso in 2016, obviously all the way to the obviously when unfortunately Jules Bianchi crashed and sadly passed away. So the FOM and the FIA have been working to improve safety. And when this came about, we, called it, and everyone else called it. It just wasn't. It just, you think about obviously how brainy you've got to be in the FOM, and what they came up with was ridiculous. And I'll even give Jordan some credit here. I don't even think he would design it.
No.
Jokes, obviously. Sorry
right.
about that, lad. So it just wasn't the best. And then now it's finally happening, and it's happening next year, which is such a rush. It's not a rush decision. Well, I don't know. It might be a rush decision, but it's next year. So as I say, lad, we have 10 rounds left of normal cockpit driving, and then we're going to go to this flip-flop effect. But it's kind of all these scary factors that all the teams have complied. Has Sebastian kind of led the trace to say, because he's kind of given a bad reaction to it, that obviously none of the other drivers are given fair tests on it, because not all of the drivers have tested this.
No,
you know what I mean? They haven't. Not all the other drivers have tested the Halo cockpit, and not all the drivers have tested the windshield wipe. Obviously, so some of them will be in the blind. I think there's probably some drivers, like for example, I don't know, maybe a Sauber driver might not have tested either, and they might be saying, well, I don't know, I haven't tested either of them. I might like the round glass instead of the hula hoop. You know what I mean? So obviously, some drivers won't have tested it, but obviously the drivers who have, like Daniel Ricciardo, I'm sure he's tested both, and obviously Seb and people like that will have a bit of understanding about what they want. So we're going to pass it over to Jordan now. I mean, obviously we've talked about this absolutely loads. As I say, it's probably our second biggest topic behind McLaren-HONDA. So, I mean, this is actually happening. Can you believe it? This is actually happening for next year. I don't know, what do you have to say about... I mean, we've... Pros and cons, they've been flying throughout the early part of last season. Even when this challenge started, the decision was already there. Actually, that's quite scary, guys. Remember, when we started this channel, the decision... Or the Halo cockpit was actually already out there, so it's been about a year and a half for this actually to take place, and the F1 debate show has been there since the start. That's actually quite a milestone. That congratulations to us.
No fault.
But obviously, so Jordan, I mean, it's actually happening. It's coming in next season. So what do you think about this decision? And I mean, there's not much to say apart from just 2018. It's next season. It's scary. It might be scary good or scary bad. I mean, what do you think of this decision?
I think it's an awful decision, to be honest with you, because I think we're speaking on behalf of every single F1 fan, because literally no F1 fan is going to like this idea. Seriously, it doesn't matter if you're a new fan, if you're a die-hard fan, if you've been a fan since the 1960s or even from the very beginning, depending how old you are. You're not going to like it, because F1, as many pundits and drivers have said, it's always been open cockpit. It has been since 1950, and it still is today. Why change it now? Why should we actually change this idea? Because it's obviously it's always been occurred since the tragic death of Jules Bianchi, which obviously was actually two years ago, and like a couple of days or something like that. So, well, since the accident in Japan in 2014, it's always been on the agenda. When they've had big meetings of the FIA with the teams or with the head bosses or whatever, they've just said, look, this is the idea. We need to try and get cockpit protection brought in, because we don't want to see any more drivers dying, which is fair enough. It's a valid point. We don't want to see young drivers coming in and just passing away like that. It's horrible. You know what I mean? And obviously the one with Jules Bianchi was the massive. It was a horrific shock. You know what I mean? And it was very, very hard to take. And we don't want to see that again. So obviously the FIA is thinking on that side of things. But to go with the Halo cockpit, I think it's just absolutely stupid, because this was only supposed to be a concept, a little idea. This wasn't supposed to be the actual thing. You know what I mean? Like when they brought in the shield, what Daniel Ricciardo tested, I'm thinking, okay, they might develop on this. This might not be the actual thing, but they might develop on it. And I'm sure someone high up, or maybe in the FIA, said, we're not going to use the Halo because it's just a bad idea. And the teams didn't want this. I think Autosport magazine came out in the statement that the FIA put out, or Sky Sports put out, when they announced that the Halo cockpit was designing. They said that the teams didn't want this to happen. So really the FIA has just gone back on what the teams were saying. Now, when obviously, as I just said before, when Ricciardo came out in Russia and tested this shield design, I thought, right, yes, they might go on and just develop on this. Then they announced that this new idea shield for Silverstone, Vettel did 3 laps in it, and he said that he was feeling dizzy. Now, it doesn't matter if one driver tests it or if everybody tests it. If one driver feels dizzy because of it, then it's off the agenda. It's scrapped, ripped up, right, blueprint gone. Because you can't have if it might not affect Pascal Wehrlein. Let's say Pascal Wehrlein might be fine, but you can't have one driver feeling dizzy and pass out, and again that's dangerous in itself. So obviously that just defeats.
I mean, it was very dangerous because Sebastian Vettel was dizzy. I mean, look at Sunday. Being dizzy actually forced him to get a puncher on the last lap. I mean, that's so dangerous. That is so dangerous.
I was hoping we would go through the episode without mentioning that.
Very dangerous.
Yeah, but actually, if any Ferrari fans want any reassurance from the F1 debate show, anyway.
Well, I met Kimi. So, he was very nice, guys. He's nothing like Telly. He smiles all the time.
He looked rather friendly, didn't he?
And he was eating a choc ice, but Kimmy's got to be Kimmy somewhere, hasn't he?
He does indeed. Anyways, we're getting off topic. Anyways, but I mean, like I said, every single F1 fan isn't going to like this idea. Now, I'm just going to throw back to 2 major key events about this Halo Cockpit design with an F1 driver and actually ourselves. Now, the first bit is the Jensen Button Monaco 2016. Now, if you remember, a drain cover hit the front wing of Jensen Button's car. I think it was it the race? It was the race, and obviously hit a bit of his front wing, and obviously Jensen got very, very lucky. Now, what people were saying is that, right, if the Halo Cockpit, right, let's say obviously at this time it was a very big debate at the time. If the Halo Cockpit was on there, would have that actually deflected the drain cover away, or would have hit would have actually made it actually hit Jensen in the face or on his crash helmet, cause some serious damage? Because we have seen that before with Felipe Massa. Now, maybe in a scenario like that, could have that prevented the spring hitting Massa's head, or could have actually hit the design, whatever you want to call it, and actually ricocheted and actually made 2 pieces, and just maybe even made it twice as worse, or maybe even broke the Halo Cockpit design itself, and maybe caused even more damage upon Felipe Massa. You don't know how that's going to actually affect. And obviously, as I said before, it could have easily hit Jensen's face. It could have maybe hit the post, and maybe gone away from his face, and then hit like one of the barges, and then flick back at and hit him in the crash helmet, and cause him serious injury. Now, as I was saying on that, when we went on the Force India tour, I think it might have been Lyle who actually brought this up, or might have been somebody else, because we were talking about.
I always do.
There we go. Because we were talking about the Jules Bianchi accident. Sadly, someone brought it up, and he basically said to someone within Force India, would have that saved Jules Bianchi's life? Now, that's what you've got to try and think about there. Would it save a driver's life? And one of the guys said probably not. Now, obviously, we're just 2 guys who just talk about Formula 1. We don't know. We don't work within the Formula 1 team, so obviously he knows a lot more what we do about the safety and how everything works. And if he says...
But can I just say something, though? You mentioned the Force India tour. I asked some stonking questions on that. I honestly, I was so proud of myself. Those people must have been looking at me, and they must have been going, who are you? Who are you?
Who's that kid?
And then obviously they've cracked and gone, it's Lyle, and then they've wanted the nut. Yeah, I remember I was asking some questions. Yeah. I really was. But yes, that was obviously brought up again. I also mentioned Esteban Ocon, obviously the new boy of Force India. I was on fire then. But it's a shame you didn't see it, obviously, because we didn't do a vlog.
It really happened, though, guys.
Back to the
it really
cockpit.
happened.
It really did. Like it happened. It went better than British. It went better
Anything
than
went better than
British
British Week. Even not doing the video is better than British Week. But yeah. So, anyways, he said that it wouldn't have saved Jules Bianchi's life. Now, if the FIA can literally prove to us, or to let's say to me, because obviously I can't really speak. I don't know what anyone else is thinking, but let's say to me, FIA will sit down to me and go, right, John, we're going to prove to you right now is this is going to save a driver's life. This could have saved Jules Bianchi's life, and if it does, I'll approve of it, because even though it looks very, very ugly and it's horrible, if we were to see a similar sort of accident to what we see in Jules Bianchi, and the driver came out alive, then that just right, okay, I'll accept it. We'll all accept that we surely would and say, right, it saved the driver's life. But if it doesn't, then it just defeats the point. And when they released an image from like the kind of like the close to the driver's view as they can get in pre-season testing last year in 2016, and it just looks absolutely stupid. And we had onboard footage as well, and again that just looked even worse. It was like, what is this?
But also it looked like, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, now obviously you guys will think I'm strange by saying this, but it reminded me of like,
you are strange.
When I was younger at the park, you know the local park, you know, as you do. It reminded me there was like this kind of little like hoop thing that you could jump through. Obviously, if you were in, you know, fit state like me, you know, lean and fit, there was like this little hoop that you kind of jump through, and it reminded me of that. And that was for me anyway, because again, obviously, like, I couldn't really tell people that because they think I'm strange, but it always reminded me of that. But yes, obviously, as John said, it's visibility to the drivers as well, because obviously they couldn't see the hoop. That was only from the onboard camera. Because obviously, you know, it comes down obviously from the centre pod where the engine cover is, obviously over the cockpit. So obviously you know, like the ring would kind of describe that, but it's more about the drive, and obviously there's a big pillar in the way. And I also remember that photo that he shared, because obviously because obviously when in the olden days, you know, we used to do like the normal, you know, we didn't have any cameras, so obviously it was just a photo on the screen, and that was obviously the big photo. I think it was episode 2 or 3 or something like that. And yeah, you're right, it was like, you could see over a corner, obviously, like to the side and side, but if you remember, there was a big black pillar almost in the way of the driver, obviously to protect, you know, like the you know, going through, for example, like the temple of the nose, if they were going to be hit with something. But obviously, you know, on a straight or something like that, it might actually it wouldn't, it might not, it would alter their visibility. And obviously that could even make a problem, like, you know, getting hit with something, for example, like Jensen nearly did, or obviously like Felipe unfortunately did in Hungary a few years ago. It could make that more of a chance, because they might not be able to see it come, but it would definitely hinder the visibility. And obviously that was one of the big talking points of why the hell would they even do this. And it's almost like, why would the FIA even come up with that option altogether? Because obviously, as we know, visibility in the cockpit, that's almost like a given, because it's like you're driving, you need to see, you know, what's in front of you. That's almost like making a road car. That's almost like making a road car's windshield out of, I don't know, like a big black, you know. It's like getting you. I'm trying to think. It's like a big black board, you know, like, or a brick wall. It's like making, you know, it's like bricking up your car's windscreen wiper, you know, not so you can't see. It's like, it really. It's just something like that.
Except one tiny little squared out window that you.
Oh yes, just so you can see. It's like.
So the FIA can go, look, you can see perfectly out there. You can see.
Oh yeah, anyone can see out of that, man.
Whatever.
No problem at all.
It actually can. But what I did find is when I read the statement on Sky Sports in the UK, I seen obviously the official statement, but I cropped out basically a paragraph of it, and I noticed a couple of things in there. Now I'm going to read it out to you, and I'm just going to basically jot down the things that I think I'm like, hang on a second, I think you're just saying this just for the hell of it. So it basically says, obviously this isn't the full statement, this is just part of it. It says, having developed and evaluated a large number of devices over the past 5 years, that's one key thing, it has become clear that the Halo presents the best overall safety performance. That's another key thing. Now, the first key thing I said there is the past 5 years. 5 years? Okay, 5 years ago was 2012.
Yep.
And in 2012, there was nothing really, anything debatable about a cockpit protection.
We were in the year of Pascal Maldonado back then.
Well, actually, do you know that just affects the point.
And his win, and his race win in Spain. So go past it.
Exactly. Now, it did get brought up about cockpit protection, I would say, in 2012 after the big crash at Belgium. But no concept was designed. Nothing was even said about it possibly happening. It was just an idea that the fans sort of said, you know, will this need to happen? Or I think some of the pundits even said. So now, no real concept designs or anything or any ideas came up until after Jules Bianchi's crash in 2014, which then sort of what was it called, the virtual safety car, then came into introduction. I think it was trialled in 2015. So, and again, obviously, ideas from that. So 5 years ago, I'm thinking nothing. As I said, nothing was even said 5 years ago. And also as well, the best overall safety performance. Now, throw your back minds about a year and a bit ago to Australia 2016. Now, you know, brand new season. You know, everything was happy in Australia. throw back to Haas's first Grand Prix. Brilliant result by Roman Grosjean.
Oh yes.
But what happened to his teammate Esteban Gutierrez? He crashed.
Oh, did he?
I think he did. But who crashed into him?
Oh, it was
Fernando
Fernando
Alonso.
Pastor Maldonado, of course, man.
It was, well, Fernando Maldonado, let's call him, right? Actually, no, sorry, it's Esteban Maldonado.
Esteban, that's more like it, yeah.
Esteban literally moved across. And obviously had an enormous accident, big weather. Enormous accident.
Word of the day, that was.
Word of the day. And, would have Alonso gotten out if the Halo cockpit was on? Safety, performance.
Yeah. It is.
What are you on about? Oh my god! I mean, this is. I can't stress enough how annoyed I am by this.
So you've got
Yeah.
it's also the fans don't want this, so the fans don't want it, and the cars will look very much different as well. I mean, that's the thing. It's like with a windshield, they could actually look, like, I don't know, kind of feasible. But it's just not a very good design. It's just not nice, not good.
It's horrible.
It's about safety, but I don't know. And do you know what though, Jordan? I'm just going to say, I think it's like the qualifying system in 2016. Sorry, like obviously Australia's big qualifying, where the only time the pole sitter has actually been out of the car with something like 4 minutes to go. I remember that was the only time in history where the pole sitter, or at least obviously since they did the 3-part qualifying system, where the pole sitter is actually being out of the car about 4 minutes to go. And I remember Martin Brundle caught that to your attention. He said, like, look at Lewis Hamilton there, obviously, who got pole in Australia. He's like, he's having a coffee or something with his hat on. It's like he's not in the car, finding it out, which obviously we're supposed to see. But anyway, back to the Halo. So I think it'll be scrapped later on next year. I definitely think they'll find a problem with it. But obviously, we'll have to wait until then and find out what they say then. But it is a mass. It's just, I don't know. It's just not the right thing for now. But obviously, leave your opinions down below. Obviously, what do you think? What do you think of this design? It's happening. It is actually happening. You can say what you like about it, but it's happening. And yeah, that's not much to say really. But enjoy the next 10 rounds of open cockpit, I guess.
If you had to go through the F1 grid of 2017 and pick a young driver who is tipped to do really good things, one of those drivers would definitely be Carlos Sainz. Now he's now back in the media circulation again of these, the transfer circuits, let's call it, or transfer rumours, like if you tumours, once again, and his future at Torro Rosso is again being speculated. Now it's come across when apparently Christian Horner, team principal at Red Bull, has apparently turned around to the media and said that Carlos Sainz is available for the right price. Now you're probably thinking, hang on a second, John. You just said at the intro that if you had to pick one of the best F1 drivers, young F1 drivers out there, Carlos Sainz would be one of them. Why is he leaving? Well, since 2015, Carlos Sainz has been at Torro Rosso, obviously part of the Red Bull Juniors program, and he's getting a wee bit frustrated because he's been stuck at Torro Rosso now, the sister team of Red Bull, and he wants a better drive. However, when you look at his on the other side of the grid. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But if you look on the other side of the grid, you would see a big torpedo with the name Daniel Kvyat on the go. And when you're hearing that he's apparently been offered a brand new contract, you are going to be a bit Daniel'd off, aren't you? So, you're not going to be happy where you are. Now, it's been yet again brought up about a future drive at Red Bull should one of the drivers leave. But none of them are budging. Now, Christian Horner has said that none of these drivers are going anywhere because he said Daniel and Max aren't, Daniel Ricciardo I should say, right? Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen aren't available at all. Carlos Sainz is. Now, where should he go? Because he can't go to Red Bull, but that's where he wants to go. So where else shall he go? Now, it's also been rumoured that he's going to Renault to replace Jolyon Palmer at the halfway stage. Now, Jolyon Palmer right now is in a really, really bad way in terms of the car. We've seen him at his home race, the British Grand Prix, on the formation lap, engine failed, I think, or something like that failed. Something really important failed and all that on the car. Yet again for Renault, and it was just another problem to add to their worries. And Jolyon Palmer's like, brilliant. Obviously, it's home Grand Prix. Obviously, it is his home Grand Prix. He wants to race there. And I was actually watching Arava's Pit Lane podcast live from Silverstone, obviously because he went there, and he said, obviously with him being there, he said that everybody in the stands laughed. How embarrassing is that?
Him.
Like when they heard that Jolyon Palmer he failed, everyone's like, That's your home driver. Oh my word, that is really, really embarrassing. That's just embarrassing.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, yeah, on the topic of that, obviously, because I went to Silverstone on the Saturday.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I mean, there was no cheering for Palmer other than for Hamilton, obviously, which I did think is strange because I remember when we went in 2016, there was cheers for Button, there was cheers for Palmer.
Well,
and
actually,
cheers for Hamilton, all spread out.
I was going to say that when Button and Hamilton came out, there was cheers. When Palmer came on, it was just hey.
I mean, it doesn't.
Really?
Yeah,
That's not fair.
As I say, I mean, last year, I mean, that's why I said, I mean, they were all like the same. Palmer got the same amount of cheese as Hamilton did because he's a home driver, and obviously, I mean, I was clapping him. Don't worry, Julian.
Oh, we did. We at the F1 debate show love Julian Palmer. Julian Palmer in, I say. But
Palmer all the way.
Palmer. Hashtag Palmer. Anyways.
Oh yeah.
To what I was saying before about Carlos Sainz possibly replacing Julian Palmer, it's actually like I think the guy at the head guy at Renault, Civil, I think it's called the team principal at Renault. I can't pronounce his name. I know it's Civil. He's just called Civil.
Just civil. He's very civil.
Has basically said that this isn't happening. Now it would be a bit bizarre for Carlos Sainz to appear at Renault to then say, right, you're going to learn this car brand new again, and he's probably going to fail at that because one of the car isn't even reliable. I would rather be in the Torro Rosso than the Renault this season, even though the Torro Rosso is much, much faster. Now, obviously, yes, Carlos Sainz is a really good driver, but you could put Lewis Hamilton in the Renault. He probably wouldn't do much with it anyway, so I don't see the point in Carlos Sainz being in there. And obviously, as well, he'll have to learn the team, and obviously, by the time the end of the season comes, he's probably going to have some bad performances and probably even get kicked out and probably made the wrong choice in his career. So now this is the debate that we're going to be discussing, right? What should Carlos Sainz do? Now he's a very, very good driver. Now he's world champion material, definitely. He could certainly emulate Fernando Alonso, put him in the right car. But at the moment he's at the wrong team. Now he's been with Torro Rosso now for 3 seasons, 2015, 2016 and 2017. Should he stay for a 4th season in Torro Rosso and waste his talents? Now that's just what a lot of people, the pundits, have been saying. Carlos Sainz at Torro Rosso, his talent has just been wasted. Now Torro Rosso aren't going to be a team who's going to be competing at the front anytime soon, or even in Carlos Sainz's career anyways. Now normally when a driver has lasted for at least 3 years at Torro Rosso, they either go to Red Bull, they go to another team, or they leave Formula 1. Now, I don't think anybody has actually went more than 3 years at Torro Rosso. So obviously to do that would be actually some sort of record. Whether you want to call that a good record or not, it's entirely up to you. So he's got when we've been discussing transfer rumours and everything, transfer contracts, there's loads of drivers that contracts runs out at the end of this season and next season, and one of them is Daniel Ricciardo's. Now I was watching a press conference back to Austria in 2016 where we found a little thing funny there, because the reporter said, can you confirm to me right now and everybody else here that you're going to be in Red Bull till 2018? And he said yes, and did that weird grinny smile at me that I found quite funny. He said it then. So he's saying to us that he's staying at Red Bull till 2018, till the end of the 2018 season, shall I say. So what should Carlos Sainz possibly I say, stay Torro Rosso for another season, wait and see what Daniel Ricciardo does, and if he leaves, put him in that seat? That could be an option. Or do you say stay Torro Rosso again for another year, and say go to Ferrari, for instance, say if Kimi Räikkönen stays for another year, which I doubt he will, to be honest with you. Or maybe say Sebastian Vettel might go to Mercedes if Lewis Hamilton decides to retire from Formula 1, because again, that's big rumours, isn't it? He's even hinted that he might leave for F1 at the end of this season, shall I say. That could be an option, to go to Ferrari, replace Kimi Räikkönen, should he retire at the end of this season, which I think he might. So there's 2018 for Ferrari, or 2019 for Ferrari there. Or do you say, I'm having none of this, I'm going to do rallying, because his dad, Carlos Sainz Sr., is a 2-time rally world champion. So that's an option. So what should he do? Because there's so many options out there for Carlos Sainz to do. Now, as I said before, he's a very good driver. He shouldn't really be sweating it out in a Torro Rosso. Now, what I've been saying is that if Carlos Sainz was to leave Torro Rosso, the only driver I can see replacing him is Pierre Gasly. I forgot his name there for a second. Pierre Gasly, very, very talented driver. I think Lau predicted him to be in Torro Rosso in the future a couple of times when we made our predictions. And even if Renault, there's so many seats. There's so many drivers going for the Renault seat, like Sergei Sorokin, Oliver Rowland, Robert Kubica. So 3 main drivers against Carlos Sainz. I can't see Carlos Sainz going there. He's even linked. I even heard that he was linked to go to McLaren to replace Fernando Alonso should he leave Formula One. But again, I can't see Carlos Sainz going to McLaren. I mean, who will want to go to McLaren for that matter, anyways? So obviously, Lyle, Carlos Sainz, very talented driver. Put him in the right car, world champion material. What do you think? What do you think he should do? Just blatantly like that. Just everything I've just said there. Possibilities. Should he stay at Torro Rosso, go to Ferrari, go to Red Bull, or stay at Torro Rosso for another year and gamble on a seat at a bigger team, or just say, nah, this isn't for me. I'm going to do rallying or do something else. What do you think?
No, I think he'll stay in Formula One. I think he will stay. Now with Carlos Sainz, he got a bit peed off last year when the trading places was between Daniel Kvyat and obviously Max Verstappen. Now, Max was a very talented driver at that time, but there was nothing really standout-ish about him at that time. It was about... I mean, they were both on the same wavelengths, but I think Carlos, kind of anticipated that it should have been him at that time. He was outperforming Max on the track, and he was also, I don't know, just... He did come across, obviously, as a really good Red Bull material, really. So, obviously, I think he wouldn't have been very happy when that came about. That, obviously, Max, his teammate at that time, obviously is now, doing bigger and better things, went to Red Bull. It was the right decision afterwards, but obviously, as we discussed before, trading places, the decision beforehand was a bit, not nailed down. So, I think he wasn't very happy with that. Now, yeah, obviously, with Torro Rosso, I mean, he's lasted this long in a Torro Rosso, which, obviously, it's, the feeder team to Red Bull. And that's the thing, I mean, it's a Red Bull program. That's what they call it, obviously. So when you grow up and you go through Red Bull's categories in GP3, you go through Red Bull sponsors in Formula 2, obviously to get you in the car. Obviously Red Bull's feeder sponsor for the feeder teams in Formula 2, and obviously you work your way up to Formula 1. And that's how we've seen drivers such as Sebastian Vettel come through, Danny Kvyat, Daniel Ricciardo, people like that. And obviously we have people in the pipeline like Pierre Gasly, obviously, who we've mentioned before, very, very talented driver as well. They get into that system and they can't get out. Well, they can and they can't, but it's good that they can't, because that's kind of like the security that they have actually got a drive to go to. And people like Helmut Marko and people like Dietrich Mateschitz and people like Christian Horner love the idea that they're staying at Torro Rosso because they're building themselves up ready to go for that Formula 1 seat. Now, Daniel Ricciardo leaves at the end of his contract runs out at the end of this year, as John said. Now, he's probably not going to leave, but obviously if he is, it's almost like the B team. Right? No, it is the B team. It's almost like it's like a sub. It's like a sub in football, really. It's like a sub sitting on the bench. So you have Carlos Sainz is a sub on the bench, and he's basically just waiting for the time when a Red Bull driver tags him in, and then he'll go to that. The Dietrich Mateschitz and Dr. Helmut Marko, obviously, are the big guys who, that's the Red Bull Junior program, and obviously what they own. And when you're in that program, you stay in that program, as I've just said. So for them to say that Carlos Sainz is allowed to go to another team is basically, I think that's when they're saying that Carlos Sainz is not going to progress with Torro Rosso. They want them to, because he's a great driver. Obviously, he's got loads of skill, he's got loads of talent. Obviously, a father-son pairing. Obviously, as I say, a father who's raced, as John said, obviously, rallycross champion. That's special. That gives a good advantage. A bit like, obviously, Verstappen and the Magnusens, it's a special thing to have. So I think that they're basically saying that there's no space at Red Bull, there's no space in the inn. There's no space, it's pointless. There's no point keeping you at Torro Rosso, because obviously you're a B team, you're not going to succeed. So yeah, you have the opportunity to go somewhere else. That's a massive topic for them to say that. Sorry, and it's also saying that Daniel Kvyat, obviously his teammate at Torro Rosso, he is not leaving the program. That's because of what happened to trading places, and that's what I'm going to pick up on that. And obviously, that I just said, I'm going to pick on that trading places just a little bit. When Daniel Kvyat was moved down to Torro Rosso, he was moved quite harshly. He was upset about it. It was a massive decision, obviously, for everyone who was a Daniel Kvyat fan and a Russian fan and things like that. It kind of was a harsh decision at that time. And obviously, as well as Max Verstappen is good in what he does and blah blah blah, obviously great driver. At that point, Daniel Kvyat had a podium with Red Bull Racing, obviously in Hungary, double podium, which obviously was great for the team. The constructors, that was the most points that they got out of Red Bull, were the most successful at the 2015 Hungarian Grand Prix, and Max wasn't. So when Daniel Kvyat moved down, it was a very harsh decision anyway. So I think that it hasn't been said in words, but Daniel Kvyat, I believe that when the opportunity arises where he can go back to Red Bull, for example, when Daniel Ricciardo leaves, say if he leaves at the end of this year, because as John just said, his contract runs out. So if he leaves at the end of this year, there'll be a space open. And I think Red Bull will be obliged to give that space to Danny Kvyat, because not because they feel bad, but because they feel like, you know, we kind of robbed Danny of the opportunity to go for a win. I mean, Max Verstappen, obviously, you know, he's had multiple podiums as well. He's only had one victory, obviously, at the Spanish Grand Prix, but, you know, doing, obviously, very well before that. Obviously, loads of podiums, and the chance in a championship car, obviously, just to look at his teammates, and it's Red Bull at the end of the day. So I think Red Bull will put Danny in that position. He's in a, you know, good position for that. That's quite a bold thing for me to say, so obviously, if you disagree with that, leave it in the comment section. What do you think about Danny Kvyat, just on that little thing that I mentioned, because he's not a Danny Kvyat topic, but do you agree with me to think that, you know, once the space opens up at Red Bull, that he should fill it, obviously, unless he does something stupid, like, you know, finishes the next, you know, I don't know, you know, something stupid, like, for example, like, say if he does another Silverstone again for the next 5 races, that's a stupid thing to do, but do you agree where at least I'm coming from? But obviously, I'd believe that that's right anyway, because obviously he was kind of moved out harshly. But with Carlos Sainz, I believe that they're just not seeing a future in them anymore, and that's quite a big thing for those two people to do. Obviously, Helmut Marko and Dieter Matches, as I said, to see that it can go somewhere else. That's quite big from them. But the opportunity to go somewhere else, I mean, there's not really that much in Formula 1. There's 10 teams, and there's only 1 or 2 positions that could move on. There's Kimi Räikkönen, obviously a Ferrari, who hasn't said that he's leaving, hasn't renewed his contract, but we have news that he might stay, and we'll mention that in another episode. You know, there's Fernando Alonso. He hasn't said that he's not staying. He wants to be in Formula 1 next year, as we all know. You know, there's no news that anyone like Lance Stroll's going to leave, that Julian Palmer's going to leave. There's, you know, there's no news about anything at the moment. Obviously, as Jordan said, the most kind of the close thing that might happen, obviously, is Julian Palmer getting replaced by Carlos halfway through the season, which is now, or at least after Hungary. So there's a few options to go, but I think getting moved out of Torro Rosso, to say that is a very bold thing to say. But for my opinion, Carlos, I think that you should stay where you are for the rest of this season, and just at least wait until a few races to go. You know, wait until, I mean, it normally starts happening around Monza time, Singapore time, Malaysia time, when, you know, news comes out about where drivers are going. You know, is Fernando going to retire? Is Kimi going to retire? Is Lance leaving? Is Julian leaving? Things like that. You know, who's going where? You know, is Danny Ricciardo done too many shoeies and he has to leave Formula 1? You know, what's happening? But there'll be news coming out later on. So yeah, Carlos, just hang in there. You know, see what's going your way. But I've got to say, I just think that's a massive thing for, you know, for Dieter Matschitz to say that he can leave the Red Bull program. He is free to leave, because, as I say, it's kind of like you're landlocked as soon as you get in the Red Bull program. You move through their categories, and then their hopes are that one day you'll get to Red Bull race, obviously, which we've seen big drivers. The biggest, obviously, is Sebastian Vettel. He went to Ferrari afterwards, but that's probably because he got more established, and obviously, like, the grip faded. But when you're in this position, especially at Torro Rosso, being at Red Bull is massive, and yeah, it's just a bold thing that they have said. But I believe that Carlos Sainz should just hold on to where he is at the moment, hold the Torro Rosso. I mean, you're doing okay. Right. They're doing okay, Torro Rosso. Just don't crash into each other like you did in Silverstone, but you're doing okay. And yeah, but you have the freedom to move. Obviously, if something like that happens, and just quickly, in my prediction. Well, sorry, not in my prediction, like my kind of where I'd love Carlos to see. I would love to see him at Ferrari. I would love to, but is that going to happen? We don't know. Obviously, you'll just have to stay tuned to find out, because as I say, we've got news on Ferrari, which obviously will be coming out in another episode, or another kind of, you know, debate, as I say, about what will happen with the future Seb and Kimi's. But yeah, I think Carlos should stay where he is at Torro Rosso just for the time being. So yeah, that's his decision. But obviously, as I say, I mean, great driver, great Spaniard, really imitating Fernando Alonso, as Jordan said, and he could go on to, you know, emulate him in championships and experience, and that lovable guy that we see on the grid.
Yeah. I think for me, Carlos Sainz, yes, I personally think he should stay. I think he should gamble for another year into 2018. Stay with Torro Rosso and see where his options are. Now, he might just immediately jump to the conclusion that, you know, I'm not wanted here in Formula 1. You know what I mean? I'm not wanted by a team. I'm not wanted by Red Bull. You know, maybe even go off and maybe play a reserve, maybe as a test driver for possibly Ferrari, maybe even Red Bull themselves. But obviously, with the experience and the talent he's got, I don't think he wants to be like, you know, cooped, locked away in the reserves at a big team. You know, you want to be in that main seat. Yeah. You want to be you want to be challenging with the likes of
it's like being with you know, Liverpool or a big team, Chelsea, Arsenal, something like that. But then saying that you're a bench one, really, you just play on the bench.
You're classing Liverpool as a big team.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like saying that you're on, like, you know, yeah, you're just on the bench all the time. You know what I mean? It's like saying that, but obviously, he is a big driver. He is big to talk about, and it's really interesting to say. Silly season. That's obviously what this all is. Anyway, guys, obviously that is obviously where we're going to wrap up episode 62. Obviously, thank you very much for watching. Very controversial and a bit depressing, obviously, with the Halo cockpit. When you said it's depressing, don't think of us. It's the Halo cockpit. That was
bad, surely.
the most depressing. I know we're bad, but yeah, we're not, not Halo
bad,
cockpit.
But we're not. Yeah. He said
it. yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's like a cheesy line. Anyway, so yes, so that's where we're going to end this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, check out our last episode, episode 61, where we talk about Max Verstappen's future at Red Bull. Obviously, again, another team that we've talked about in this episode. Make sure you check out the Silverstone vlog. Obviously, where I go to Silverstone, vlog the day from Saturday qualifying. Make sure you check out that. I made some very special people. It's interesting. Yes, obviously make sure you stay with this channel. We've got more to come, obviously tackling round 11 and into the summer break as well. Second part of the season and 2018 to see this amazing Halo cockpit. Anyway, so that's we've been the F1 Debate Show, and until next time, guys, see you later.
See you later, guys.
Merci, Jules. You will always be in our hearts. We know that sooner or later Jules would have been a part of this team.